2025 has had some banger new shows come out that have garnered many fans. However, it has also seen the ends to a couple long-running series that we have all come to be grown attached to. And these endings have been kinda ass-ish. From the okay conclusions to the complete ass ones that aren't even really conclusions, today we're going to talk about the most disappointing endings to long-running shows in 2025. First off, why don't we talk about the first bad ending that came out this year? Squid Games Season 1 was, stop me if you heard this one before, lightning in a bottle. And yeah, it was. When it came out, it took the world by storm, and the next 2 seasons attempted to recapture that lightning, which they didn't really succeed at, to varying degrees. Season 2 was actually not that bad. The characters were cool, and while the games weren't as interesting or fun as Season 1 as a whole, they were alright. But Mingle was actually such an awesome game. But that brings me to my first problem with Season 3. And while it may just be a me problem, the games in Season 3 were pretty lame, honestly. I mean, hide and seek was pretty cool, but that was mostly only because of the character dynamics and the drama, which was obviously a part of the games in the first season. But besides the drama, the games themselves were just fun to watch and imagine yourself in. Hide and seek as a game in this season, on its own, just boils down to murder people and try not to get murdered, which makes for good emotional stakes, but not really an interesting game on its own. But that's okay, we still got the rest of the season. For sure they're gonna have a lot more interesting games, right? The fans were theorizing a bunch of possible games that sound really cool. So what's it gonna be? Monkey bars? Human chess? That would be so cool. What's that? Oh, they're just gonna do jump rope? With a small gap in the middle they have to jump over? Okay, I guess that's cool too. But this game sounds super easy to win, and all you gotta do is jump over the rope, as long as you don't hurt your ankle in a very plot convenient way in a completely different game. God damn it. This is the same shit they pulled in Season 1 with Player 67, where just because the front man wanted some spectacle, he blew up the whole glass bridge and a stray shard fatally wounded her. Like, are you fucking serious? After all that, that's how she dies? You may as well have had her die during the bridge game. And they pulled that shit again in Season 3. If you want to kill off 222, that's fine, but can you think of a less convenient way? And the last game is also lame, but I'll get to that in a little. But speaking of character deaths, they all pretty much happen in hide and seek, which makes for good tension and emotion, but after it's all over you realize the writers kinda blew their load way too early, cause we still got like 5 hours left of the show with like 2 characters we care about. 1 character. Oh, and a CGI baby that we all definitely care about. But don't get me wrong, the deaths in hide and seek did hit. Like when the mom had to kill her son and then she kills herself, that shit almost made me cry. But no tears. Not yet. And other characters died that I cared about too, that maybe should have died later on. Like the fake Marine maybe should have lasted longer because it feels like he still had more story to give or something. He just kinda did a 180 character change and died. I know he was faking being a Marine, but I'm pretty sure he was still a genuine good guy. But that's not the biggest deal. Also, the way Player 120 died was really well done, with her being able to escape if she wanted to, but coming back for the others and dying because of that selflessness was really emotional. And she was a fucking badass. Her scenes were awesome. Okay, now let's get to the ending we're here for. Starting off, the final game itself is really lame. 1. It's not even really a game. It just pushed someone off the ledge. And I know it's supposed to be because this whole second Squid Game is about choice and how throughout the season they've had to choose what happened, like staying in the games or leaving. And now they have to choose who to kill democratically. That's cool and all, I guess, but the game is just really boring and not that creative, and by far the worst game in the show for me. And you might be thinking, but in the first Squid Game, the last game was just 2 guys kicking the shit out of each other, and yeah, the game there itself was also pretty boring, but the reason it worked so well was because the 2 characters were main characters who we had come to care about, and the fight had a ton of emotional weight. In Season 3, this game has literally 1 character that I, and I'm sure most other people cared about, Ki-hoon. Oh, I forgot, it had the shy guy who has been in the background all season going kinda crazy. I'm sure they were setting him up to do some crazy villain arc, or maybe he'll finally stand up for himself and sacrifice himself for the greater good. Oh no? They're just gonna kill him off without doing literally anything? Okay, cool. I'm glad he was a character these last 2 seasons. But yeah, so the game happens, and in the end, everyone is dead, including the evil old guy, and yeah, it was satisfying. But now, it's just Gi-hun, CGI Baby, and Crypto Bro. And since the guy that they were saving to kill in the next platform game-ended himself before they could get to the next one, now one of them has to die. So maybe now the Crypto Bro will sacrifice himself for his baby, or maybe Gi-hun will trust him to take care of the baby and sacrifice himself. No? Crypto Bro is immediately gonna go to threatening his own baby's life? Okay, that's not that big of a deal. If they wanted to keep the Crypto Kid a bad guy, that's fine. I was just personally hoping he would change because it would have been more interesting to me. But yeah, they fight and Gi-hun wins. But oh no, they never clicked the button to start the match, so it didn't count, even though they were right next to it like 50 times. Whatever, I just think that's a pretty lazy way to set up what Gi-hun is gonna have to obviously do. So yeah, Gi-hun sacrifices himself for the CGI monster and says his final words, "I like horses," or something like that. I don't know, it's been a while. And after he dies, the VIPs and the whole organization gets away with everything, and bada bing bada boom, 5 Squid Games spin-offs and some white lady playing a Korean game in America that I bet your life no one in America even knew existed before season 1. Oh, and the boat subplot was literally pointless. And all of the deaths and years it took for the detective to find his brother were all worth it because he finally got to ask him the question that he had like 5 years to think about. Why? Yeah, that's it. Totally worth it. And he doesn't even get an answer in the end. Okay, so I just think that the main reason why season 3 ended up like this was simply because this is what happens when your main focus is the message over just telling a good, satisfying ending. Not a happy ending. An ending doesn't have to be happy to be satisfying. That's not what I'm saying. But it seems like the writers were just caught up in the message they were trying to portray of how in real life the bad guys sometimes get away with it and all that or something, and that's why the bad guys in Squid Games all get off scot-free. I'm sure there's some other message in there, but it's been a while and I don't really feel like researching it, but that's not even like the main point I'm trying to get to right now. Because we all know the real reason why this show ended the way it did. Because if the bad guys were caught, then how is Netflix gonna make all these spin-offs? I did tear up at Gi-hun's death though, I won't lie. That's my boy. Next, let's talk about by far the least worst or most best ending of the 3 to me. My Hero Academia. If you've seen some of my other videos, then you know just how much My Hero Academia means to me, and how much this ending hit me in the emotional nuts. And yeah, although the manga ended like a year ago, the anime just ended like a month ago, so... Also, I just want to talk about the ending. Okay, look, so this ending isn't one that I would call bad at all. I'd actually call it pretty good. But yeah, there were some problems with it that I feel I have to bring up. First off, let's talk about the main part of the ending, Deku losing One for All. While this on its own wouldn't ruin the ending for me, or even really make it disappointing. The thing that makes this story beat pretty lame is its surrounding story beats, that feel like they were kinda not thought through enough. First of all, I want to say I love Deku. He's my favorite character in MHA, and literally like the main character in my most viewed video of my favorite characters. But I think that Deku giving up One for All to save Shigaraki was pretty irresponsible if you think about it. Look, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong, and hey, there's a good chance I might be, but if Deku was able to beat Shigaraki in a straight up fight, which I personally do think he was able to do, then he really should have just done that instead of giving him all the quirks, because I mean, Shigaraki ended up dying anyway, and between you and me, I don't think Shigaraki really deserved that much mercy to begin with. Look, I know he was a victim of All for One, and that's really sad. But I mean, he killed a shit ton of people, and you're telling me making this guy feel better in his final moments by sacrificing the most powerful quirk in the verse is more important than keeping said quirk for any future problem that may come, especially with the quirk singularity theory that they kinda just dropped by the end of the series and never really fully went into. What if another All for One or Shigaraki is born, and now there's no One for All because Deku wanted to save a little boy that didn't really exist anymore? All that being said, thematically and story-wise, it kinda works, and I see what Horikoshi was going for, but it was just not handled the best, especially with Deku every other sentence saying how much he wants to save the little boy in this monster's mind, or whatever.
Destroy him and leave no trace behind! Accept reality, Izuku!
No. He's a person. A person!
My guy, the fate of the world is in your hands. If you fumble this shit, the world is fucked. You might want to drop your ideals just a little. But after that comes the time skip, which I also have some problems with. 1. Why didn't Deku get a suit way earlier? Correct me if I'm wrong, but All Might's suit was made in, what, a year max? They really could have made one for Deku like that in a year, or honestly, even a fraction of its power would be enough for Deku to still be a hero. Remember, this Iron Man armor was going toe to toe with All for One. I'm sure 25% of that power would be enough to take care of, I don't know, spray bottle head villain man. Also, give my boy his own statue. He saved the fucking world and sacrificed everything. But Frey, he does have a statue, with everyone else. No, he deserves his own, just like All Might. But Deku would never ask for that. Who cares? Realistically, he would get a statue anyway. He shouldn't need to ask. He saved the goddamn world. He should be just as famous as All Might, even if he wasn't a hero for that reason. And I know a message in the story is that the world shouldn't rely on just one person, and everyone should help each other out, and all that. But I mean, Deku mattered the most. I said what I said. Final note, the character relationships. Okay, I'm not the biggest shipper, but I mean, come on. Not one main ship could be made canon. I know in the bonus chapter, Deku and Uraraka got pretty much confirmed to get together. But 1, I'm just talking about the main anime ending. And 2, after this 10-year long commitment and constant blushing, I'm gonna need more than just a dap up. And you couldn't even give me Kaminari and Jiro? They were pretty much confirmed to like each other in the show, and 8 years later, they still haven't got together? Why? I know not every character has to get with someone in a story, but I mean, come on, it feels like Horikoshi only didn't make them get together just to troll us, and maybe subvert expectations, but sometimes it's okay to vert those expectations. Is that correct grammar? I don't know. I honestly think the main thing that could have fixed a lot of these problems, or at least the main one I had with the way Deku giving up One for All was handled, would have been to just have a real time skip. Could you imagine if the Vigilante Deku arc actually was a time skip of like 3 years or more instead of a couple months or something? Imagine if Deku went dark for years and trained One for All to get it to 100%, all while on the run from All for One, and fought him when he was an adult. I won't go into too much detail right now, but if you think about it too much, you'll realize that the whole story of the 10-year-long anime of My Hero Academia takes place in the span of about a year. And to me, at least, that's kinda silly. You're telling me this like century-long battle between All for One and One for All was finished up in like 3 semesters? That's kinda goofy. And Deku was only a hero for like a year and pretty much mastered One for All and the other quirks in a year. While that is cool and shows how badass he is, I just think it would have been cooler if it took him a couple years to master these quirks and then fight Shigaraki and All for One. And the reunion with Class 1A would have been a lot more emotional. Not that it wasn't already, but most of all, it would have made him giving up One for All so much more impactful, because he would have had this quirk be a part of him for many years at this point, and the other wielders would have been with him for a lot longer, so it would have hurt even more when he had to let them go. Also, just don't insinuate that Deku could have beaten Shigaraki if he didn't care about saving him, because it makes Deku seem kinda dumb. But with all that being said, I still cried my eyes out at this ending. I mean, that's my boy, and his story is over. At least what we'll see of it, of course. I still got super emotional. And all the hype moments in this season really landed. Don't get me started on Bakugo's whole part in this season. Every edit gave me goosebumps. So yeah, Just because My Hero is on this list doesn't mean I hate it. I just have some problems with it. And I didn't have any other long-running shows ending this year to make it 3 examples for this video. But trust me, the other 2 I definitely do think are pretty bad. Now, let's get on to the most recent ending to a long-running series, and the reason I'm sure most of you are watching: Stranger Things. Stranger Things Season 5 is pretty bad, and that really sucks. Let's start off by talking about the characters and how they were mishandled. First off, after Season 4, I was expecting Season 5 to just immediately go crazy and jump right into the shit. I mean, literally, the last season ended with rifts being opened throughout the town and a shit ton of people dying, including this guy who got gojoed. But no, because what do we love to see every season? That's right, a time skip. That glowing rift that is an entrance to the Upside Down? No big deal. The military covered it up with metal plates or something, and it was just an earthquake, so no one in the city is suspicious, except for like the 20 main characters. Speaking of those main characters, like 50% of them do almost nothing this season, including my boy Steve, which is what I'm most upset about. You see, you would think that in the final season to this decade-long show, that for every season has split up the main cast into like 4 different groups, would finally bring them all together and keep them together for most of the season to see them interact one last time. Nah, let's Scooby-Doo this shit again and split them up into like 5 different groups this time for 90% of the last season, the last chance for these characters to interact. Okay, but what do these characters have to do this season? Well, let's start off with Nancy. She is basically just Rambo this season, I guess, and is in a love triangle with Steve and Jonathan, and in the end, ends up picking neither of them. And look, I don't think that the girl always has to end up with the guy in the end, but when you pretty much make that her only character arc in the past couple seasons, and she ends up getting with neither, then it all kinda seems like a waste of time. Also, she was kind of annoying with how she was always shooting first, ask questions never this season. Nancy, don't shoot that giant ball of energy without discussing it first. Nah, I'm too cool to wait. Nancy, don't shoot the mind flare yet. Let us get up to the hill first and get into position before you get its attention. Nah, you better start running your asses to those hills and climb them up in the next 30 seconds, or I'm dead and it's all your fault, not mine. Jonathan does nothing but get dumped and save Steve, which hey, I'm grateful for, but that scene is just kinda forced in general. Joyce was in this season. I know, kinda crazy, I almost didn't see her either, but she pretty much spends the whole season babying Will and not giving a shit about Jonathan. Because I think she forgot that she has 2 kids in this show. Will is pretty cool this season. His powers were kinda goofy at first to me, but they ended up being pretty cool by the end. But Noah Schnapp's acting was pretty bad in my opinion, a professional non-actor, and his coming out scene was not so great, but I'll get to that. Mike does almost nothing. Sorry, I got nothing to say about him really. Lucas, I also don't have much to say, except that he has some of the funniest moments and memes made about him right now that had me dying. Dustin was alright. His attitude this season makes sense with what happened to Eddie last season, but it sometimes felt forced, like the fight with Steve that conveniently messed up the walkie-talkie and stopped him from being able to tell Nancy and Jonathan to not shoot the big ball of bullshit or whatever, even though they probably shouldn't have needed someone to tell them that. And also his voice sounds pretty clear through the walkie-talkie to me, so
just listen to me, okay? Don't do anything! Don't touch it!
And his speech at the end was nice. Max honestly should have died in season 4 because she honestly did nothing for most of the season except try to find a way out with Holly. And when she does, she is very ready to ditch Holly, which was hilarious. Oh, she did also take an hour to start running every fucking time she needs to. The fuck are you doing, Max? Giving an inspirational speech to Holly the Heroic or whatever? Vecna is on y'all's ass. Run. And when she does get out, she does almost nothing except kinda guide Eleven and Kali to Vecna's house in the Mindscape. But really though, they didn't really need her for that, and Elle probably could have found her way there anyway. But even if they did need Max, It just wasn't enough to make Max still be alive feel like it had any point in the story. Speaking of Holly, I'm sure you are all very happy that she, I'm pretty sure, got more screen time than half the cast in the final season. What's that? Who's Holly? Oh, come on, Holly. Remember Mike's little sister that had like half a scene every season and like 5 lines total? Yeah, she's pretty much the main character this season. Look, Holly wasn't a bad character, but she definitely should not have taken up as much screen time as she did. But her smacking the other kid with the radio was pretty funny.
Just in time.
Speaking of new characters taking up screen time, delightful Derek, my boy. I actually really like Derek. He was pretty funny, and he didn't take up as much screen time as I thought he would, so I don't think he was a screen time hog like Holly was. And he's badass. My boy was holding off 3 army guys from breaking through the door by himself. That's my goat. Hopper was cool. It was just funny how every chance he got, he was trying to sacrifice himself. We get it. You don't want Elle to die. But can you stop trying to kill yourself every time we take our eyes off you? Speaking of Elle, I'm gonna be honest. Her storyline for the first half of the season was the most boring storyline for me this season. Every time her and Hopper came on screen, I just did not care and wanted to get back to any other character's plotline, even Holly's. I don't know why. Maybe it's just that her powers have gotten kind of stale by this point. Maybe her acting was pretty bad this season, so it just took me out. Or maybe it was just a very uninteresting plotline, especially since it intertwined with the government experiment plotline, which I also did not really care about. And it also had Kali, who me and almost everyone else did not like very much, since just like Hopper, she was trying to kill herself all the time. And unlike Hopper, she wants to take Elle with her. And she was also the designated character introduced this season just to die at the end, even if she technically appears a long time ago, but no one likes that episode, so who cares? Robin was fine. She had some funny jokes.
Too big, it's not gonna fit.
Steve hears that all the time and he goes in anyway, don't you, Steve?
What the hell's wrong with you?
And her moments with Will were okay, if not kinda awkward. And I honestly do not remember much of what she did except helping Will come out and stealing some drugs. And now, for the most important character, Steve the Hare Harrington. My goat. I didn't like him this season because there was not nearly enough of him. My goat got like 10 minutes of screen time and killed each one, but that is not enough time. And also, his fight with Dustin felt pretty out of character for him with what he said about Eddie, even given the tense situation they were in. But overall, what screen time he did have were the parts I looked forward to watching the most. They just should have taken all the screen time they gave to Holly and gave it back to Steve.
Bopper?
Okay, so those are all the characters and what they did and how well they were handled. Now, just for fun, let's talk about a few things that make no sense, are kinda goofy, or just were never answered or explained. Karen somehow hurting the demo with a bottle and somehow and goofily being the one to save the gang in the hospital, even though she was bedridden like half a day ago. Military just dipping after the Upside Down and Elle are gone and letting all the characters go, even though they killed a ton of soldiers and committed just a couple of war crimes. Max somehow graduating even though she was in a coma for like 2 years. Will still being alive even though he was connected to the hive mind and should be dead after Vecna's killed. This is something I'm wondering about, but when Holly quote unquote escaped and was falling from the abyss, how was she planning on landing without splatting? And honestly, Vecna kinda came in clutch, cause she would have definitely been dead without him, force pulling her back. And did the pregnant women in the Upside Down laboratory just die? I mean, obviously they did, but were all the characters cool with that, or did they even get told that they were there? I know Kali and Elle wanted to end the experiments and they might have died anyway, but I mean, the show could have at least acknowledged the characters technically killing innocent people who didn't give consent to be sacrificed. And there are many more of these moments that everyone is talking about right now. These are just some of my favorites. Now let's talk about the pretty badly mishandled moments in this season. Okay, for the first half, I have almost nothing to say because pretty much nothing happened and I do not remember anything really for the most part. But let's talk about Will's coming out scene. Let me start by saying, this is not a homophobic criticism or anything like that, at all. This is purely from a storytelling perspective.
This scene just felt so out of place and mistimed. The characters are about to fight Vecna in like an hour, and Will decides now is the time he is going to come out. And I know it's because apparently Vecna will use his fear of not being accepted against him, but it still kind of felt forced, and a scene like this shouldn't really feel like that. And maybe if he didn't come out to literally every character in the show, even ones he has barely interacted with, like I love Steve, but I think they said their first and only direct line to each other this season. If it was just Will, his mom, Jonathan, and his best friends, then maybe it wouldn't have been so bad. But no, he's got the whole cast. Even Murray is there to see this. Next plotline I'll talk about is the final fight. This was so bad. 1. Where are all the demo demons? No bats? No demo dogs? Nothing in this whole homeworld of theirs? Not one to help fight against these people trying to kill the Mind Flayer? And the fight, I'm pretty sure, was shorter than Will's coming out scene, which is pretty hilarious. And the fight itself was just so easy and anticlimactic. They hit the Mind Flayer, the boss of all the monsters in the show, a couple times, and Elle does her force magic a little bit, add Will for good measure, and bada bing bada boom, kill the villain of this decade-long show in under 10 minutes. And now the epilogue, and Elle's death. Okay, so Elle quote-unquote dies by sacrificing herself to stop the government from ever trying to experiment on her or the Upside Down again. And yeah, it was sad and all, but I just didn't really care, honestly. And why is that? Well, at least to me personally, I was just bored of Stranger Things as a whole at this point. With every season before this, even the weakest one, which to me was season 4, I know people would say it was season 2 or 3, but I love those seasons. And I still really like season 4 too. With each one of those seasons, I couldn't stop watching. I didn't want to stop it. I binged them all back to back because I wanted to know what happened. I cared a lot of what happened to these characters. I remember season 3, I stayed awake all night waiting for the episodes to drop. And I binged them all. That morning, non-stop, no breaks. But this season, I just didn't feel like that anymore. With every episode that ended, I had to force myself to watch the next. And I would take long breaks in between every like 2 episodes. I didn't even start watching the season until like last week. Not because I wanted the whole season to be done before I started watching it, but because the act of watching this show anymore simply felt like a chore. I was watching Stranger Things not because I wanted to know what happened next, but because I needed to, because I had simply committed too much time to it over 10 years to not finish it. And that's why the epilogue, with everyone getting their happy ending, felt kind of hollow. Of course I was happy that they were happy, and especially Steve. I was so scared he was gonna die all season 4 and 5, but I had just lost interest. This season was an obligation. But that doesn't mean this whole season was terrible. It had its moments. The Steve and Dustin reconciliation made me tear up, and the last scene with all the kids putting their D&D binders on the shelf had me bawling my eyes out. But I think that was more because it was actually over, not because this season in and of itself earned it. But yes, this season did get some tears out of me. But it really does say something that people are literally coming up with Conformity Gate because of how disappointing this season was, and especially the ending, that they literally cannot believe that that's the real ending. But it goes to show that even when a long-running show has a disappointing ending, some worse than others, it still gets a lot of emotion from us because, well, it's over. These shows that we have spent years watching and feeling all kinds of emotion for is actually over. And even though the endings aren't the best, that won't take away from all the memories and experiences they gave us. And I can't wait to find the next show that will give me the same experience again. So, what was your most disappointing ending? Did you enjoy these endings? Let me know because I genuinely want to know. Also, let me know your favorite Stranger Things Season 5 plot hole because I'm seeing them all over TikTok and each one is making me laugh. And please, don't take this too seriously. If you guys like the endings and the way the shows ended, that's totally fine. I'm not a professional reviewer or anything like that. These are just the thoughts I had when finishing these shows. And I'm probably wrong about a lot of things. I'd love to hear about what you guys thought about my points. Well, that's it. Bye guys.